Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving right into a sprawling, honestly pretty intense 2-hour Q&A panel from a group called Promethean Action. What's really fascinating about this source is how they connect dots that normally seem completely isolated. They're linking Middle East diplomacy with local debates over rural data centers, all into one unified worldview. Now, our goal here isn't to endorse this political perspective at all, but rather to objectively map it out using the Socia's own framework. That way, you can understand the exact mechanics of their argument.
To make sense of this massive partisan discussion, we've broken it down into 5 key pillars. We'll look at the Middle East strategy, energy as hard power, the AI and tech race, remaking the U.S. economy, and finally, wrap it up with the American system.
All right, let's start with this incredibly vivid metaphor from the panel. Imagine you put red ants and black ants in a jar, and then you shake that jar up so they fight each other. According to the panel, this ants in a jar concept describes what they call a British imperial system of geopolitics. The claim is that external financial empires have historically maintained control over resource-rich regions by deliberately and continuously inciting conflict between sovereign nations, effectively keeping them trapped in a jar.
So, that brings us to Section 1, the Middle East strategy. They frame recent diplomatic moves in the region as a deliberate attempt to literally just stop shaking that jar. The panel argues that the core conflict in the Middle East isn't really religious, but structural. It's like this. On one side, you have what they call a global imperial financial system, which they refer to as being run from the City of London, focused entirely on controlling resources. But on the other side is their vision for the future. They see a network of sovereign nations empowered to act in their own economic interests, completely free of any outside manipulation.
And this perfectly illustrates their totally unique take on the Abraham Accords. They don't see recent diplomatic pushes, even wildcard ideas like inviting Iran to join the Accords, as just your standard peace treaties. No, they see them as structural maneuvers. The ultimate goal here? Breaking the forever wars through massive shared economic development. Think giant water desalination projects. Ultimately, the idea is that this shared prosperity literally strips external financial networks of their leverage over the region's resources. Which brings us to Section 2, energy as hard power. The panel makes a really strong claim here. All that geopolitical maneuvering abroad, it's literally only possible if you have massive physical resources locked down at home. Just look at the sheer scale of these metrics. The U.S. is currently the absolute largest producer and exporter of oil and natural gas in the world. Period. To the panel, this kind of energy dominance is the ultimate hard power. It's this absolute self-sufficiency that they argue allows the U.S. to reshape global politics without, being held hostage to foreign oil pipelines. But here's the catch. They actually don't see fossil fuels as the final destination. The source outlines a clear 2-step process. Step 1, sure, secure that fossil fuel dominance right now to break foreign reliance. But step 2 is the real endgame. We're talking a massive national transition to advanced nuclear and fusion power. In their framework, true, multi-generational global sovereignty absolutely requires a huge physical leap forward in how we generate and consume power. That demand for immense physical power seamlessly transitions us into Section 3, the AI and tech race. This section dives right into some hyper-local controversies. The source asks a very immediate, very real question. Why are massive data centers suddenly popping up all across the American heartland? They're taking over rural farmland and demanding absolutely massive amounts of local electricity and water. Well, the panel's answer steps way outside your typical local zoning debate. In their worldview, these aren't just annoying server farms. They are the actual front lines of a battle for future productivity. They forcefully argue that this aggressive rollout of data centers, AI infrastructure, and advanced robotics like Boston Dynamics is a critical, must-win geostrategic race against China. The bottom line, whoever masters this physical computing technology is going to dictate the economic terms of the next century. But to win that high-stakes tech race, you need a fundamental shift in the American workforce. Let's look at Section 4, remaking the U.S. economy. The crucial metric to wrap your head around here is 500,000. That's 500,000. That is the number of new business startups forming every single month. The panel enthusiastically points to this massive explosion of small-scale enterprise as undeniable proof of an ongoing transition, a transition toward an economy driven by machine tooling, skilled trades, and localized manufacturing, basically stepping far away from an economy dominated by giant monopolies.
And the source goes hard on this. They heavily critique what they call a financialized economy. They argue that institutions like the Federal Reserve prioritize Wall Street balance sheets and debt management over the actual builders. So what's their alternative? A manufacturing economy, a system entirely laser-focused on tangible production, physical infrastructure, and human creativity. Now, to justify this massive structural shift from just managing money to actually manufacturing goods, the panel goes way back into 18th century history. Welcome to Section 5, the American system. They explicitly revive a historical framework known as the American system. They define this as an economic plan rooted straight in the policies of America's very first Treasury Secretary, Alexander Hamilton. It explicitly prioritizes national production, physical infrastructure, and human innovation way over the simple control and circulation of money. And here's the kicker. The panel argues this 18th century blueprint is the exact model currently being used to challenge modern globalism today. According to the source, this system is built on 3 distinct pillars that they say must be applied today. First up, protectionist tariffs to foster local industry. Second, internal improvements, which, today translates to modern power grids, high-speed rail, and space programs. And third, a national bank, designed specifically to ensure that credit flows directly to actual producers and builders, instead of just financial speculators. Ultimately, this entire sprawling worldview boils down to one singular historical clash. On one side, you have the American system, which they argue elevates human productivity, continuous discovery, and sovereign development. On the other side is what they call the British system, which they define as an imperial model based purely on managing financial debt, controlling global resources, and managing populations. As we wrap up this explainer, the Promethean Action Panel leaves us with a genuinely fascinating, complex lens through which to view current events. It really forces us to ask a provocative question. Are we witnessing the final collapse of global financial imperialism, or is this simply the turbulent, messy birth of a new technological arms race? Look, whatever your political leanings happen to be, understanding the structural logic behind these arguments is absolutely crucial for decoding the geopolitical shifts happening all around us right now. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep seeking to understand the systems that shape our world.